So everybody, it's lovely to be back in Crosby Ravensworth Village Hall again, and I've managed to pinch Cameron for another little series of filming before he goes back to Hereford. So what we're going to do today, we're going to film for you a short but hopefully really useful seated practice, which is obviously beneficial to those of you who come to my Friday seated class, but it's not exclusively for those people. If anybody just wants to have a sort of short, moderate series of exercises without having to get all the mat out, then this will be useful. I do say to people though that just because you're sitting, that doesn't make it physically easy, because you're having to use your muscles to keep your posture going. I know for one thing, Cameron had a huge breakfast this morning. I said, what's this about? He said, well, I've got to set myself up for this Pilates, it's hard work. So it is, because you're using your brain, you are using a lot of focus, a lot of concentration, and you're doing things in that sort of technically precise way, such as you might do if you were doing an examination, doing a test. So there we have it. It may be simple, but it's not easy, but hopefully it will feel really beneficial to your body. So do give this little seated practice a go. So I'm always talking about feet because it is our feet that orientate us to the ground, and when it comes to our locomotion, our movement, we're negotiating different types of terrain, be it concrete, pavement, rough paths, grass, heather, whatever it is. And our feet need to have the sensitivity to feel what's beneath, to feel different contours in the ground so that we don't trip, so that we can pick our feet up, rotate our ankles, we can negotiate the ground that we're walking on. So I do a lot of work with a ball, and I've already shown you some work with the prickle ball. So be creative. Doesn't really matter whether you choose one of these little rubber balls. I like the ones that are kind of a jelly ball that you can just squash a little bit because they're not too hard. You can use a squash ball, or maybe that's a practice golf ball, I'm not sure. Now this is a dog ball, and this one comes complete with tooth marks, so I think it has been used. Just work, because the tactility of working with different surfaces, different densities, will help to mobilise and loosen up your feet and make you more aware of the different parts of your foot. Your feet are quite complicated, there's a lot of bones in your foot and your ankle. So we're going to start with a little sequence with the little rubber balls that I've done with you in class. So I'll talk you through it, because obviously on film here you're not going to be able to see this too closely. So I'm going to have the blue one, give the orange one. We're going to work with our left foot first, because if we're quite right-handed, it's quite good to work with the other foot. So first of all, we're going to place it under the front of the heel. So this is often a place where you get a bit of tenderness, plantar fasciitis, sometimes people get. So I don't want you to press too hard, and one of the reasons for doing the wall work sitting is so that you can work precisely and without any balance issues, without tiring the hip muscles, but you can still be precise with the ball. So we're going to just press down as if your heel is pressing on a button. Don't attempt to try to squeeze the ball too much. It's really sensory. We're not trying to do anything too deep. You can go deeper with this if you wish, if it feels comfortable, but just quite light. So once you feel that you have got in touch with that point on the front of the heel, very important point of your heel that relates all the way up into the hip to the sit bone, I'm going to place the ball under the inner arch of the foot, so it almost looks like a little bridge with the ball tucked underneath. And we're going to lift up and down, just so that there is a feeling there as I keep my heel on the floor and press up and down with the ball. I can just see the ball, just slightly there, visible under that inner arch. Now that can be quite a tender place, because we don't walk on that part of the foot, but nevertheless we need to be aware of it, we need to be aware of the muscles and with the design of the foot there on the arch. So now go to the outer arch, and this is quite interesting because obviously this edge of your foot does make contact with the floor when after your heel strike when you're walking. So I tend to keep my heels still and then just pulse gently up and down, just so that I'm aware of that part of my foot. Then we place the little ball under the metatarsal, under the pad of the big toe, so not under the toe itself. And I'm just going to press lightly so that I become aware of that place. And you notice actually that it sort of starts to open up between the toes. Move the ball to the next toe and just do 3 or 4 and the next toe. So I'm onto my third toe. This can be quite tricky to feel the precision. The fourth toe and the baby toe. So don't worry if the ball rolls away from you, just retrieve it and start again. So now I'm going to roll the ball by keeping my heel still, but I'm making a sort of arch movement there, an arc, rolling the ball from the big toe to the little toe. It's really nice to do if your feet have been stuck in walking boots and you feel that your feet are quite compressed. This can really make the feel lighter and freer. And then finally, applying a little pressure as you roll the ball back to the heel and releasing the pressure as you roll back to the toes. Following the line from each toe feels quite logical. So we're doing it, obviously I'm talking to you, and I will do this more slowly and more mindfully if I'm obviously at home and doing this for myself. But this is just to give you a reminder of the practice. So there's a little bit of pressure as you roll the ball back to the heel, pushing the fluids back up to the heart. So a lovely thing to do. Going to our other foot, we go to the heel. So it's the front of the heel, but it's not under the mid part of the foot. It is the heel, but it's the front of the heel. And just press lightly up and down. So how many you do, it's up to you, 3, 4. And then we go to the inner arch. And it's really interesting because I love the sensation of this. I love the feeling of awareness and release. But a lot of people do tell me, they feel this is really quite tender. It's not pleasant. So it just goes to show we are all different in how we feel our bodies. But I think the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll be with working with your feet. So going to the outer arch, just take care, don't apply too much pressure. We're not trying to achieve any great big goals here, we're just waking up the feet, we're just becoming aware of the different parts of our foot, the way some parts of the foot are more padded, some parts are softer, some parts move more than other parts. So now we go to the pads, so underneath. If you've got sort of toes that do tend to curl on top of each other, this can really help to space, to get more space. So I'm just moving a few times on each toe, moving the ball under my foot so that it's underneath each pad. Finally the little toe. And then keeping the heel still, but rolling. So this can feel gritty, it can feel a little bit gravelly, the feeling, so don't push too hard. It's good to notice without judgment so that you will find you have an instinct to offer your foot whatever it needs. Finally, rolling the ball back to the heel. I think also the dexterity of your foot having to manage the ball without actually reaching down and sort of putting the ball there with your hand. It's very good. It's good for that sort of fine coordination. So there we have it. That's our sort of little practice with the small balls. So I'm just going to put that to one side. So now we're going to take our right foot across the thigh. And if this is difficult to manage, then I would suggest you have a look at some of the other foot exercises that I've shown you in earlier practices, because this position here might not be feasible for everybody. Do be careful with hips and knees. If you are able to do this sort of seated position here, it is really good for helping to open up the hip joint. And we can now have our left hand, and what I want you to do is to push your fingers through the toes to spread the toes open. Now, if you can get the very bottom of your fingers there into the bottom of your toes, you've got a good grasp. And just bend the toes back and forth. I should say to Cameron actually that I learned this particular exercise when you were on your cats at Northern, and I was doing the adult class. We had a lovely session. So now find this ability of your forefoot to rotate slightly against the ankle. So it's a little bit like wringing out the dishcloth, and you'll find that the sole of your foot, you do see the creases slightly there. So don't force it, you're just finding what is there, not what isn't. So just a little bit of rotation. And now, keeping the hold on the toes, circle the ankle. Now, the same thing applies when we've worked with our shoulder joint or our hip joint. You do not need to scrape around the edges of your movement. Just keep within a range that feels comfortable for your joint. But tune in, listen into the interior sensations of what you can feel on the inside, which we kind of know as our introspection. So changing to the other foot. What's interesting is that you may find that your sitting position feels quite different. For me, I have a slight imbalance in my pelvis, so I feel like I'm dipping down on my left side. So that's okay. Sometimes I even sit with a very slim book underneath my left sit bone, because when I feel more level, everything else seems to work better. But that's a structural issue for me. So placing the fingers through the toes. Feels harder on that side. I know some people really, really do not like touching their feet. I'm quite happy with that, but that is quite a stretch for those toes. So once you've got that, cradle that forefoot nice and snugly, and just move the toes up and down. So it's quite passive. When we've done this in previous series, we've sort of used our own foot muscles to bend the toes. Now we're using our hand to bend the toes. And then your little rotational motion. Now, this ability of the forefoot to rotate, you can see that when you're walking on uneven ground and your foot steps on a sort of rocky bit or a sort of grassy tussock, in order for you to keep maintaining your balance and the integrity of your sort of forward motion, your foot has to adapt. And of course, sometimes I think, our boots and shoes hold our foot so tightly still that maybe that adaptation is less easy to feel. But I haven't explored the sort of barefoot walking as such. I still need my boots. So now circling the ankle. If it is clicky, just make the movement slower and slightly smaller. And there we have it. That's a little bit of work to get in touch with our feet and mobilise them. So we're going to take our right heel across the left thigh, checking on the alignment of the standing leg. This position may not be, again, very useful to everybody, but give it a go. I mean, if you can't manage the sitting exercises on the floor, then at least on the chair, you may find you have a little bit more scope. So this is called the hook hook up, and this is just really nice if you feel that your mind and your body are not too integrated, if you need to kind of come into your zone. This is really nice to do, what works the sort of right and left sides of the brain, right and left sides of the body. So I'm going to hold my right shin with my left hand, and I'm going to cup my right ball of my foot with my right hand. It feels a bit like a game twister. So now we're going to really start to think about using the breath and using a little bit of extension and flexion. So on the in-breath, we're lifting up, feeling that little bit of stretch into the hip. And on the out-breath, releasing, releasing, releasing and softening. In-breath. And out-breath. We're going to do that twice more with this leg. In-breath. And out-breath. And in-breath. And change legs. So we have got our right hand holding our left ankle, shin, and the left hand cupping the left foot. So we've got sort of crossing over. And because we have to make a conscious decision to hook up in this way, it starts to bring our brain into a more alert state, more alert with what the body's doing. So starting relaxed, we're going to inhale and lift up. And exhale and relax forward. And inhale. And exhale. And twice more. So feet on the floor, and we're going to just now check our sitting posture. So we are on our sit bones with the lumbar spine, relaxed, enjoying its natural curve. The feet firmly planted on the floor, the knees over the centre of the foot, softening into the front of the hip, lightly extending the spine, not working too hard. So a little bit more breathing, this time really working to expand into the sides of the rib cage, into the sides, into these pockets here. So we're going to lift up on the in-breath. And on the out-breath, we're going to gently pull the palms down the midline of the body so that we can feel both our sort of width and scope of our movement to the sides, but bring it back to the midline. This helps to feel how the in-breath helps us to extend and reach, and the out-breath to soften and fold. So we've got in-breath and out-breath and in-breath and out-breath, and last time, in-breath, slight pause. Now, I know that some of you love the idea of the saw, particularly Cameron's version of the saw, but doing it sitting on the floor is a little bit tricky, a little bit difficult. So we're going to take a version now that uses the chair. Of course, you can just hold on to the chair if you need a bit more support. I'm going to take my feet just a little bit wider because if we were on the floor, we would have the slightly wider position. So I'm going to use my left hand if I need it just to hold the chair, because I don't want to pull off the chair, but it just gives you a little bit of stability. Taking a breath in, we're going to extend towards our corner, bowing the head and employing those abdominals to create a curve with the spine. I'm not leaning forward on the hip. So as I reach, I've got to stretch through that right side. Now I'm going to breathe in and take my left hand to meet my right palm. On the out breath, I'm going to make like some rays. Lift, open, palms facing out. Turn the head if it's comfortable. Enjoy the reach to the down corner and the up corner before coming up. Vertical. And then with care, use your trunk muscles and your feet very stable on the floor to tip into that backward line. Open that chest, shoulders down the back, feet on the floor. Come up, and we're all ready to take the left hand across. So breathing in. On the out breath, scoop the belly. Bow the head nice and soft with the back of the neck, but a good reach out. Now, if you keep your bum well fixed to the floor, to the chair rather, it gives you that stretch from your seat through the shoulder and the arm. In breath, right hand, right palm to left. Out breath, rainbow arc. So we've got a nice diagonal line. We're bending and twisting, and we're coming up to the centre. Use the abdominals, shoulders down the back. Now take care with this because we're extending and rotating, so it's quite a strong movement. You can choose whether you look to the back hand or the front hand and come up. One more time, let's flow through this time, Cameron. In breath, out breath. In breath, left hand, out breath. Rotate. In breath, up. Out breath. Extend. Coming up, in breath, out breath, left hand, bow, nice reach, in breath, right palm to left, out breath, rainbow, expand, expand, coming up on the in breath, out breath, keep those feet firm, keep your abdominals connected, and come up, relax the head, nice practice, well done. So to complete this little short chair practice for you, we're going to look at strengthening the vastus medialis, the part of the quadricep group that sometimes gets neglected and is easily weakened if you do have an injury. So we're going to do this sitting. Some of you will probably remember that I have done a similar exercise lying down with supports under the knee, which is a good way to do it if you need a more remedial version. This is a little bit stronger, and we've got a leg weight on today. So I've been focusing a little bit with Cameron on strengthening his knees, because he's got quite mobile knees, and getting a sort of better relationship between his foot, his knee and his hip. There's nothing I can teach him about his upper half, his spine and his shoulders, but possibly some useful things in my practice for Cameron with regards to this chain, the lower limb chain. So, here we are. We're going to put our hands on our waist, but if you do need to hold the chair for support, just try not to let the upper body slump. So we're going to sit up on the sit bones. We've got the abdominals drawn strongly towards the spine. So we've got that feeling of a little internal corset. Just be careful on the position of the chest and the chin. As I'm talking to you, my focus is on sort of delivering the exercise. So I hope that perhaps Cameron is demonstrating the posture perhaps better than I am. Hands on the waist. We've got our right heel just in front there, and we're going to take a breath in. And on the out breath, we're going to imagine puppet strings taking our toes up to the ceiling. Now I'm focusing on my kneecap being pulled by those muscles strongly up towards the hip, but I'm also imagining a wall that my inner thigh is contracting against through the centre between my two legs. And I'm going to point the toes on an in-breath without letting the knee bend. Out-breath to flex, in-breath to relax. Keep the stance, it's hard work doing this sitting. So, out-breath, extend. In-breath, reach through the foot. Out-breath, flex, and down. 3 more. And extend. In-breath. Keep drawing that kneecap up. do have a struggle with counting. Flex. Down. One more. Lift. Make sure that last one doesn't show any signs of deterioration in technique. And then what's quite good, if you've just got one weight, is that the pause, where you have to switch the leg weight over, allows your brain to reset for working the other side of the body. And that, of course, is very similar to how dancers work using the bar. So you have that moment to reorganise yourself for the other side. So it's no need to rush. You sort of need a GCSE sometimes for getting the straps right with the leg weights, but I usually find that most of them have a stripe on the outside. The Velcro is beginning to wear a little bit thin. I might lose that weight halfway through. So left foot slightly in front. Just checking that alignment, checking the pelvic levels, the shoulder levels, shoulders down your back. So we've got a breath in, on and out breath. Lift, in breath, point, flex, and relax. So once you extend that knee, those muscles really have to hold. We don't let them give way. Flex and relax. Very tempting to drop backwards, so keep those abdominals working hard. And don't forget, if it is a little bit tough for you doing this sitting on the chair, you can take this on the mat with support under your knee and a smaller range of motion. How many is that coming? Both as bad as each other. Let's do one more. Lift. Point. Flex. Oh. Yeah, okay. So, after that little seated practice, I would probably just want to make sure that I'm employing all of my useful strategies to go from sitting to standing. Sitting long periods we know isn't great for the body, so now we're going to need our glutes, we're going to need our strong legs and feet, we're going to need a strong torso that is well integrated together to hold us nice. So we've got our hands around our hips, and we're going to take a breath in, we're going to hinge forward at the hip, we're going to press those feet into the floor. As you begin to lift off the chair, don't let the upper body collapse. Send the crown of your head forwards and up, squeeze your glutes, hover just above your chair, keep squeezing those glutes, squeeze the glutes, squeeze the glutes, squeeze the glutes. Now take the arms up, the sides, repeating the movement we did earlier. It's as though you're getting hold of a balloon and it's going to take you into the air, up onto the toes. I think that was Cameron's ankles creaking there. Keep squeezing the glutes. Open the arms. Float the heels back to earth. And relax. I hope that you've enjoyed that little seated practice. I've been doing some seated Pilates on the Garth in my village for some of my neighbours in the sunshine. And it's surprising how much you can do and how well worked the body can be. Sometimes we sort of think that it's an easy option. So I hope that you found that beneficial, and look forward to the next one where Cameron will be on the mat. Bye for now, everybody.